Hey everybody, this one is, are you a taxpayer? And that's a good question. Copies of these documents can be found in my private group at Yahoo called Administering Your Public Servants. For a complete set of YouTube videos with private information shares, a DVD with over 50 searchable law dictionaries and other books and forms, contact me privately at engineerwin@yahoo.com. Donations to support this work are appreciated. I prefer gold or silver coin, but as an extremely less desirable alternative, I can accept the IOUs, the Federal Reserve notes, the PayPal gifts, the checks, the money orders, etc. Send me an email for particulars. So the question is are you a taxpayer? Every taxpayer is a cestui trust, having sufficient interest in preventing the abuse of the trust to be recognized in the field of this court's prerogative jurisdiction. That's Henry Boland's 1912. And then a summary of 5 pages of the congressional record on June 13th, 1967 says that a citizen of the United States is a civilly dead entity operating as co-trustee and co-beneficiary of the public charitable trust, the constructive cestui trust of U.S. Inc. under the 14th Amendment, which upholds the debt of USA and U.S. Inc. Slater's protestations to the effect that he derives no benefit from the United States government have no bearing on his legal obligation to pay income tax. Unless the defendant can establish that he's not a citizen of the United States, IRS possesses authority to determine his federal tax liability. Okay, that's United States of America versus Slater, Delaware court case, federal case. So obviously a U.S. citizen is a taxpayer. And so let's find out more about that. A U.S. citizen's a cestui trust, and a cestui trust comes from the Roman cult. This is Tomlin's Law Dictionary, 1835 edition, volume 2, under the definition of mort main is where this is taken from. Yet still it was found difficult to set bounds to ecclesiastical ingenuity. That's the Roman cult, folks. For when they were driven out of all their former holds, they devised a new method of conveyance by which the lands were granted, not to themselves directly, but to nominal fiefs to the use of the religious houses, thus distinguishing between the possession and the use, and receiving the actual profits while a season of the land remained in the nominal fief, who was held by the courts of equity, then under the direction of the clergy. That's the Roman cult, folks. To be bound in conscience to account to assist to use for the rents and emoluments of the estate. That's taxes. They're talking about taxes right there, folks. And it is to these inventions that our practitioners are indebted for the introduction of uses and trusts, the foundation of modern conveyancing. And that was in 1835. It was the foundation of modern conveyancing, and it's still to this day. Anyways, persons who are not taxpayers are not within the system and can obtain no benefit by following procedures prescribed for taxpayers, such as the filing of claims for refunds. The revenue laws are a code or a system of regulation of tax assessment and collection. They relate to taxpayers and not to non-taxpayers. The latter are without their scope. No procedures are prescribed for non-taxpayers, and no attempt is made to annul any of their rights and remedies in due course of law. With them, Congress does not assume to deal, and they are neither the subject nor the object of the revenue laws. So, again, do you know who you are? So this is all talking about taxpayers, and the revenue laws apply to taxpayers and not to non-taxpayers. So filing a refund is not the proper procedure. This is DC Code, located at 31 Stat 1432. And you'll notice how it says Chapter 56 in Section 1617, and then it says that it's Chapter 854, an act to establish a code for the law for the District of Columbia. Well, the Chapter 854 is the name of the statute, okay, and in the statutes at large, okay, in 31 Stat, all the statutes at large in there are numbered, and this one's number 854. And but Chapter 56 is Chapter 56 of the DC Code. which is, anyways, it's located at 31 Stat 1432. Anyways, the point is that it says a legal estate to be in the cestui use. That's going back again to this right here where it says, talks about the cestui trust here, and it talks about the cestui trust here in DC. Okay, so the legal estate to be in the cestui use, that's in 1901, actually, and that's going to the same thing that's found in Tomlin's Law Dictionary, 1835 edition. More stuff from the DC Code, which was approved on March 3rd, 1901 by the 56th Congress, and this is right at the beginning, 31 Stat 1189, and Section 2, where it says, and be it further enacted that in interpretation and construction of said code, the following rules shall be observed, namely, third, the word person shall be held to apply to partnerships and corporations. Okay, and so again, we're talking DC Code, okay, and so we're talking everything in the District of Columbia. And more DC Code stuff, Section 252, located at 31 Stat 1230, where it says, talks about the presumption of death, okay, and so the District of Columbia is under martial law. Martial law works on presumption, so all that does is it gives them the ability to presume that you're a cestui trust, okay, because a cestui trust is a dead thing, and so again, that just gives them the ability to presume. It's a rebuttable presumption, okay? So you can defeat their presumptions. All presumptions can be defeated. But again, it's a presumption that you're a taxpayer, okay? It's all under martial law. This is where it's codified in the U.S. Code. At 15 U.S.C. Section 44, definitions, corporation shall be deemed to include a company, trust, so-called Massachusetts trust, or association, incorporated or unincorporated, which is organized to carry on business for its own profit or that of its members, and has shares of capital stock or certificates of interest, and it goes through the exact same definition, except it says does not have shares of capital stock or certificates of interest, okay? So again, that's a cestui trust. If it does not have shares of capital stock or certificates of interest, that's a cestui trust right there. Don't forget to like this video. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Don't forget to click the bell next to the subscribe button so you're notified when there's a new upload. This is the front page of my channel, and notice the arrow is pointing at the bell. You click on that bell, and pop-up will come up with a checkbox you have to check, and you have to click OK if you want to be notified about upcoming uploads. So the question is are you a taxpayer? Do you think that the money you use to pay for taxes is used to pay for government services like national defense or police? Have you thought about that? I mean, a lot of people always say to me, you know, you got to pay taxes. Who's going to pay for the roads? Well, that's a good question. And we got the answer. This is from the Grace Commission report submitted to President Ronald Reagan on June 15, 1984. And it says, among other things, it says 100% of what is collected is absorbed solely by interest on the federal debt. All individual income tax revenues are gone before 1 nickel is spent on the services taxpayers expect from the government. Okay, so no. The money you pay for taxes does not pay for those roads. It does not pay for anything. It goes into the pockets of bankster thieves. That's where it goes. And announcing a subscription-based YouTube channel called Sovereignty International. The recommended cost of the subscription is currently $1.99 because it avoids the advertising only. And originally when I set up this channel, I was planning on having some exclusive content, and I do have some exclusive content, but it's not going to be as much as I was hoping, because the only power that these Satanists have over us is through the fraud and deception, and my agenda is to expose it all for all of our benefit. And so, yes, I've got a Arlington private information share on there that's exclusive. I've also got a video on there on how to do some powerful affidavits. I'm going to upload some more videos on procedural things as people have contacted me and had some difficulty with some of this stuff. And so I'm going to try and upload some videos that go into great detail on the procedures and things like that. Just because, that'll be the kind of stuff that'll be on here. But there's really not going to be much. The only thing I can really guarantee is that there won't be any advertising. I certainly can use donations, and so if you want to use it as an excuse to make me a donation, I appreciate it. $1.99 a month is not much of a donation, but a little bit coming from a lot of people adds up pretty fast. And so, I appreciate it. And so you can use it that way, or you can use it just to avoid the advertising. It's up to you. Anyways, I'm currently publishing 3 videos a week. My YouTube channel, the link to it, some people had trouble finding it, so there's a link to it right there. Once I get my subscribers over a certain level, then YouTube will allow me to have a customized link. But until then, I'm pretty well stuck with this one. Do you know, so then the question is, do you think you have an obligation to pay taxes? And do you know what income? Okay, it's called income tax, okay? And income tax is only one of several different kinds of taxes. So do you think you have an obligation to pay taxes? And do you know what income is? And these are questions that people have. And so we're going to answer those right now. This is U.S. Supreme Court, Eisner versus McComber, 252 U.S. 189. It becomes essential to distinguish between what is and what is not income, according to truth and substance without regard to form. Congress cannot, by any definition it may adopt, conclude the matter, since it cannot by legislation alter the Constitution from which it derives its power to legislate, and which within those limitations alone that power can be unlawfully exercised. And so income is derived from capital, the gain derived from capital, and here we have the essential matter. Not a gain accruing to capital, not a growth or increment of value in the investment, but a gain, a profit, something of exchangeable value severed from the capital, however invested or employed, and coming in, being derived, that is, received or drawn by the recipient for his separate use and benefit and disposal. That is the income derived from property. Nothing else answers the description. Okay, now, the point I want to make here is there's a couple points. First of all, the emphasis, okay, like the bold and the underline, all the stuff in here that's underlined is underlined in the actual case if you look it up. I've looked this one up. I look up most of my cases, but I don't look them all up. But this one I did look up. And that bold and underlining is in the original. You can go look it up too, and you'll find that bold and underlining in the original. And that is unprecedented. I've never seen that in any other case. And so what they're saying is that income is corporate profits. Okay, think about it. That's exactly what they're saying. That's income is corporate profits. So are you a taxpayer? Are you a person as defined by their statutes? That's the next question. And here's some of their statutes. This is Title 26, United States Code, Section 7701. Actually, this is a code, which is a liar's opinion of what the statute says, but it'll do. I mean, there's other videos I have, and I talk about them here, that I go into the statutes, so we're not going to go into the statutes. This is just a code, which is a liar's opinion of what the statute says. Anyways, it says, when used in this title where not otherwise distinctly expressed or manifestly incompatible with the intent thereof, person, the term person shall be construed to mean and include an individual, trust, estate, partnership, association, company, or corporation. So a lot of people would look at that and think, well, you know, obviously I'm not a trust, I'm not an estate, I'm not a partnership, association, company, or corporation, but, you know, maybe I'm an individual. And so let's look at some other things about statutes, about what include means, and some maxims of law, one in particular called justum generis. But here's some other codes. First of all, this is Title 1, United States Code, Section 1. The words person and whoever include corporations, companies, associations, firms, partnerships, societies, and joint stock companies, as well as individuals. Okay, so, and some people might think that because individuals there, that could mean me, or maybe include is something that's not there, is in there too. And so we're going to answer all of that here in a second. Person means an individual, firm, partnership, association, or corporation. Okay, so again, that means the word include is not there. That's a good thing. But still, what does a person mean? What is an individual, firm, association? Obviously, firm, partnership, association, or corporation are all fictitious entities. And Texas Government Code. Person includes a corporation, organization, government or governmental subdivision or agency, business, trust, estate, partnership, association, or other legal entity. Again, this is all very similar, okay? Includes is used in that one again. And that one actually only lists fictitious entities. That's Texas Government Code. This is Title 5, United States Code, Section 552A2. The term individual means a citizen of the United States or alien lawfully admitted for permanent residence. And so that's pretty all-inclusive. See, they like to, so that's where you get these other words, use the word individual. See here in Texas Transportation Code, Section 541.0014. Means an individual, so shoot, that's U.S. citizen, obviously. And then up here, person or whoever includes corporations and individuals. And so that means a U.S. citizen too. And so we're going to get into that. And then in 552, Title 5, United States Code, Section 552A13, the term federal personnel means officers and employees of the government of the United States, members of the uniformed services, including members of the reserve components, and individuals entitled to receive immediate or deferred retirement benefits under any retirement program of the government of the United States, including survivor benefits. Okay, so federal personnel means anybody that's got a social security number there. Okay, but again, we're going to go into that. And so what's include? Well, first of all, include is limiting, okay? When they use the word include, a lot of people think there's something there that's not there, and that's exactly false, okay? Include is limiting. Include, or the participial form thereof, is defined to comprise within, to hold, to contain, enclose, comprise, comprehend, embrace, involve, okay? So there's nothing else there that isn't specifically written there. And American Dictionary of English Language, include, to confine within, to hold, to contain, as a shell of a nut includes the kernel. A pearl is included in the shell. Okay, so that's all that's in there. Include, to confine within, to hold as an enclosure, take in, attain, shut up, contain, enclose. Okay, so that's all that's there. There's nothing else that's not listed. Black's Law Dictionary, 6th edition. And then there's another principle that we're going to talk about here, justum generis, okay? And that's a maxim of law. It's of the canon of construction, okay? When they make these statutes, they use a justum generis. It's a canon of construction that when a general word or phrase follows a list of specifics, the general word or phrase will be interpreted to include only items of the same type as those listed. For example, in the phrase horses, cattle, sheep, pigs, goats, or any other farm animal, the general language or any other farm animal, despite its seeming breadth, would probably held to include only four-legged hoofed mammals typically found on farms, and thus would exclude chickens. Okay, so again, justum generis, and you notice you go back to here to all of these. Okay, well, these are U.S. citizens and government employees there, but here, person, okay, individual, firm, partnership, association, or corporation. Well, then what they're saying is that an individual is a type of a fictitious entity, okay, and that's a U.S. citizen. I can show you that all day long, too. And then in government code includes a corporation. Well, those are all fictitious entities there. But here, Title 1, person, whoever includes corporations, companies, associations, firm partnerships, societies, joint stock companies, as well as individuals. Well, they're listing a bunch of fictitious entities, so individuals are fictitious as well. Person, mean and include, that's Title 26, United States Code. Okay, individual, trust, estate, partnership, association, company, or corporation. Okay, again, those are all fictitious entities, which is a U.S. citizen's a fictitious entity. I could show you court cases to talk about that too. Anyways, this is actually a letter from the Social Security Administration that I got a hold of, and it says, dear Mr. Whoever in Fort Worth, Texas, we cannot give you a Social Security card because you are not receiving federal aid or government assistance of any kind. Therefore, he's not required to have a Social Security number. Okay, so, really, you don't need one unless you're getting government assistance of any kind, okay? Federal aid or government assistance, okay? Otherwise, you don't need one, okay? These bankster thieves like to compel you to get one, but that's a violation of your rights under the color of law. I mean, there's all sorts of people that insist on a Social Security number. And so then also, if you think about it, what they'll do, another thing they'll do, because they want to access that trust. That's actually a number for a trust. It's a cestui trust. We already talked about that. And so a Social Security number is a number for a cestui trust. And so there's an account, okay? And what they do is they're plundering that account, okay? That's actually called pillaging under martial law. And they're pillaging that account. And that's a violation of the law too. Okay, and so they want a Social Security number or a date of birth so they can fabricate that account and pillage the account, and then at the same time they use it as justification to go ahead and violate your rights because you just agreed to be the U.S. citizen slave, and so therefore you don't have any rights. You're a slave, and they violate your rights, and so that's why I never give on out. I don't have one. I went to the U.S. Supreme Court and I told them. I put an affidavit in there when I filed my first case to the U.S. Supreme Court, and I said, I don't have a Social Security number. I've never had a Social Security number. No problem, because you don't. Nobody has one. Anyways, they also, in this letter, you see that it tells them that they can appeal their decision if you want. Anyways, now this is back to... where I talked about the new channel called Sovereignty International. This is the front page of the channel. I try and mix this stuff up in case I get going because, it helps me to chill out sometimes. If I'm really getting going here, because you watch some of my other videos, I do get going sometimes. Anyways, so I kind of mix it up all over the place, and it kind of helps me to chill out sometimes when I get going. So I'm obviously not going right now. So, but anyways, this is the front page of my subscription channel, and if you notice at the top, the arrow is to the link to the channel, and the bottom arrow is to the start free trial button. The reason that is there is because some people sent me $1.99 one time, and I didn't know if it was a donation or if they wanted me to sign them up for the channel. And I have absolutely no control over the subscribers. I can't even see all the subscribers. I can see some of them, but I can't see them all. And so if you want to subscribe, you got to click that start free trial button, and YouTube is going to want you to do whatever they need you to do to give them payment information or whatever. But that's the way you got to do it. I have no control over subscription on this channel. And my contact information is sovereigntyinternational.wordpress.com. My website is sovereigntyinternational.fyi. My email address is engineerwin@yahoo. My YouTube profiles are Sovereign Living and Sovereignty International. My Facebook community page, I deleted it due to censorship. My private group is Sovereignty International. It's on Facebook, and that's being deleted. But it takes time to ban 17,000 people off your group on Facebook. And I'm not going to let them profit from my hard work. Watch my video, Do It Yourself How to Hurt Facebook. Anyways, my Yahoo private group is called Administrating Your Public Servants. My Google private group is called Administrating Your Public Servants. And follow me on Twitter at EngineerWin. So, gets back to the original discussion. Are you a taxpayer? What are the courts saying about taxes? Well, let's find out. This is the license tax cases. This is actually a Civil War era case, 1866. The requirement of payment for such licenses is only a mode of imposing taxes on a licensed business, and the prohibition under the penalties against carrying on the business without license is only a mode of enforcing the payment of taxes. The recognition by the acts of Congress of the power and right of the states to tax, control, and regulate any business carrying on within its limits is entirely consistent with the intent of the part of Congress to tax such business for national purposes. So, again, taxes are only for businesses, okay, fictitious entities. It's got that written all over the place here. And they impose licenses, and taxes are just, the license is just a way of enforcing the payment of taxes. That's all. They just want money. They don't care about the license. They just want the money. And a license is a contract, okay, is a right given by some competent authority to do an act without which such authority would be illegal. Okay, so they can't convert a right into a privilege. Your right to exist, your right to get compensation for labor, your right to do whatever is not taxable. Okay, the instrument or writing which secures this right is also called a license. A license is express or implied. An express license is one in which, in direct terms, authorizes the performance of a certain act, as a license to keep a tavern by public authority. An implied license is one which, though not expressly given, may be presumed by the acts of the party having the right to give it. And a good example of that is filing fees. Okay, when you pay a filing fee in court, that's a tax. That's called an excise tax. It's a privilege tax, and they're converting a right into a privilege. This is what these bail priests do, these Satanists. Watch my judicial horrors video. Anyways, and so that's a good example of an implied tax, implied license. Okay, once you pay the extortion, then you can go ahead and proceed in their so-called court. If it were true that according to the spirit of our Constitution, the power of taxation must be limited by the right of representation, whence is derived the right to lay and collect duties, imposts, and excises within this district. If the principles of liberty in our Constitution forbid the raising of revenue for those who are not represented, do not these principles forbid the raising of it by duties, imposts, and excises as well as by direct tax? Okay, so no taxation without representation. Anybody ever seen a DC license plate? It says on there, no taxation without representation. Okay, well, actually, if you're a U.S. citizen, you're in D.C. I don't care where you're at, you're in D.C. Anyways, and we'll go through that here in a minute. This is actually consistent in Canada as well, and I believe you'll probably find the same kind of thing in every country. But certainly we got court cases in Canada and the U.S. The legislature expressly and clearly authorizes the imposition of a tax by a delegated body or individual when the requirement of the principle of no taxation without representation will be met. The issue is therefore whether the principle of no taxation without representation is respected by the EQIA. Okay, so that's Ontario English Catholic Teachers Association versus Ontario. And this is Whitburn versus Whitburn Cottage Developers. And this is a Canadian case again. Revolutions have been fought over taxation without representation. Gee, that sounds like the American Revolution. This is King Street Investments versus New Brunswick, Supreme Court of Canada. The fundamental constitutional principle that there shall be no taxation without representation. The principle of no taxation without representation is central to our conception of democracy and the rule of law. Okay, this principle of no taxation without representation is central to our conception of democracy and the rule of law. Now, so it's a contract, okay? Think about it. That's how they do the contract, okay? They represent you, okay? That's the contract. If you let them represent you, then you're one of the slaves. You're an imbecile. You're incompetent. And so you get to pay tribute. And this is another Canadian case, but it talks about another principle of taxation. The government can only tax its own property, okay? In other words, Dominion legislation, even though it deals with Dominion property, and this is reference Unemployment or Employment Insurance Act 1935 in the Privy Council. That's in England, actually, 1937. And so, again, the government can only tax its property. And we've got some cases, U.S. cases, that are comparable to this. The Congress, this is actually U.S. Constitution, Article 4, Section 3, Clause 2. The Congress shall have power to dispose of and make all needful rules and regulations respecting the territory or other property belonging to the United States. Okay, so if you're a corporation, then you belong to the United States. They can and if they can take a penny, they can take it all. We're going to go through that here in a minute too. This is McCullough versus Maryland. This says basically the same thing that other Canadian court case says. This is 1819. All subjects over which the sovereign power of the state extends are objects of taxation, but those over which it does not extend are exempt from taxation. This proposition may also be pronounced as self-evident, okay? It's obvious. The sovereignty of the state extends to everything which exists by its authority or permission. Well, that's corporations, okay? That's the only thing states can create is corporations, any kind of state. So they have to create a fictitious entity so then they can get their extortion, okay? So they can't force you to create a fictitious entity so then they can steal your property. But that's a lot of times what they do because we don't know the law. And also, if they can take anything, they can take it all. And this is Crandall versus Nevada, the taxing power being in its nature unlimited over the subjects within its control would enable the state government to destroy the above-mentioned rights. Okay, so if they can take a penny, they can take it all. They can take everything. Okay, that's what you have to understand. Okay, if they can take a penny, they can take everything. And but they have to treat everybody the same. So if they take your everything, well, they can take someone else's everything too. Then you'd have a revolt on your hands. And so obviously that's not going to happen. But you know, that's where you get all these fines and penalties and fees and all this other stuff. Well, again, that's all about if they can take a penny, they can take it all. Whereas taxation by the Parliament for the purpose of raising revenue has been found by experience to occasion great uneasiness and disorders. Well, no joke, Batman, that from and after the passing of this act, the King and Parliament of Great Britain will not impose any duty, tax, or assessment whatever payable on any of His Majesty's colonies, provinces, or plantations in North America, except such duties as it may be expedient to impose for the regulation of commerce. And this is an act to impose taxes in commerce only. George III, Chapter 12, 1778, 2 years after the war, after the Declaration of Independence. The individual, unlike the corporation, cannot be taxed for the mere privilege of existing. The corporation is an artificial entity which owes its existence to the charter powers and charter powers to the state, but the individual's right to live and own property are natural rights which the enjoyment of which an excise cannot be imposed. Okay, because that's what taxes are. They're excise. They're privilege taxes. They're all excise taxes. This is Title 15, United States Code, Section 17. The labor of a human being is not a commodity or article of commerce. Why do you think that they have on, when you file an income tax form, they have a block in there is your occupation? Okay, well, and not many people put down laborer. You can put them in a difficult position if you put down laborer, I'll tell you right now, okay? Labor of a human is not a commodity or article of commerce. Now a little deviation here. CubeYard.com for great custom websites, domain names, and hostings. Go to CubeYard.com. Use coupon code CY172 for 20% off your first order. CubeYard.com, your source for websites, domain names, and hosting. So, what are taxes? Okay, so let's find out what exactly taxes are. A tax is an impost, a tribute imposed on the subject. Okay, an excise, a tallage. In public law, taxation signifies the system for raising money for public purposes by compelling the payment by individuals of sums of money called taxes, okay? It's a tribute, okay? Some general principles of taxation can be said to be, one, the subjects of every state ought to contribute to the support of the government as nearly as possible in proportion to their respective abilities, that is, in proportion to the revenue which they respectively enjoy under the protection of the state. In the observation or neglect of this maxim consists what is called the equality or inequality of taxation. And that's the Dictionary of English Law, Sweet and Maxwell, London, 1959. So a tax is a tribute, okay? That's exactly what it is. It's a tribute on the subject, okay? Are you a subject? And that's the question, okay? A subject is a slave, okay? And a tribute is what slaves give. This is Tomlin's Law Dictionary, 1835 edition, volume 2, under the definition of mortmain. Yet still it was found difficult to set bounds to ecclesiastical ingenuity, okay? This is all coming from the Roman cult, folks. For when they were driven out of all their former holds, they divined a new method of conveyance by which the lands were granted, not to themselves directly, but to nominal fiefs, to the use of the religious houses, thus distinguishing between the possession and the use, and receiving the actual profits, while a season of the lands remained in the nominal fief, who was held by the courts of equity, then under the direction of the clergy. That's the Roman cult, folks. To be bound in conscience to account to his cestui use for the rents and emoluments of his estate. Well, that's taxes, folks. And it is to these inventions that our practitioners are indebted for the introduction of uses and trusts, the foundation of modern conveyancing. And it's still the foundation of modern conveyancing to this day. Well, think about it. Did you know that you were a member of the Roman cult? Okay, you're involved with the Roman cult. If you have a cestui trust, if you go and, like the birth certificate, that's what sets up the cestui trust, okay? Well, this is all like membership in the Roman cult. That's exactly what it is, okay? That's exactly what it is. Did you know that? You're getting to participate in a satanic organization. Okay, that's exactly what it is. That's all Satanism, okay? They're playing their little games to get you to participate in their satanic organization, to get you to pay your tribute to their satanic organization. This is nothing more than a Roman Empire alive and well today, and you're paying tribute to it. For the very idea that one may be compelled to hold his life for the means of living or any material right essentially to the enjoyment of life at the mere will of another seems to be intolerable in any free country where freedom prevails as being the essence of slavery itself. Hello, folks. Okay. Did you get that? Okay. This is Yickwo versus Hopkins, U.S. Supreme Court. Okay. A U.S. citizen equals Roman cult equals slave. Okay, that's all these Roman cult folks know how to do, is enslave people, okay? This is all a slavery scam is what it is, okay? And taxes are evidence that you're a slave. Think about it. Think about it. If you have to go and pay them a penny, then you are forced to work for nothing for that penny. Well, that's slavery. Well, most people pay 30-40% of what they make. Well, they're forcing you to work for nothing to pay that tribute, okay? That is slavery, okay? You're forced to work for nothing to pay that tribute. Hello? It's evidence that they, U.S. citizens, have not the political rights which are vested in citizens of the states. They are not constituents of any community in which is vested any sovereign power of government. Their position partakes more of the character of subjects than of citizens. They are subject to the law of the United States, or Canada as applicable, but have no voice in its management. I mean, this state can be applied anywhere, really, but have no voice in its management. If they're allowed to make laws, the validity of these laws is derived from the sanction of a government in which they're not represented. Mere citizenship they may have, but the political rights of citizens they cannot enjoy. And that's California, People versus De La Guerra, okay, 1870, California Supreme Court. The term citizen in the United States is analogous to the term subject in the common law, okay, and that's State versus Manuel. The term citizen is analogous in United States. Citizen in United States is analogous to the term subject in the common law. Okay, so U.S. subjects became U.S. citizens. Civil rights under the 14th Amendment are for federal citizens and not state citizens. Federal citizens, as parents, have no right to the custody of their infant children except subject to the paramount right of the state. Again, if you're a U.S. citizen, you have no rights. You're a slave. You pay the tribute. You're a slave. You get to work for nothing. That's exactly what it is. Finally, it is to be noticed that the term subject is capable of a different and wider application in which it includes all members of the body politic, whether they're citizens or resident aliens. All such persons, okay, are subjects, all being subject to the power of the state and to its jurisdiction, and as owing to it, at least temporarily, fidelity and obedience. And that's John Solomon, Jurisprudence 133, Black's Law Dictionary, 8th edition. So again, that's talking about subjects. The term resident and citizen of the United States is distinguished from a citizen of one of the several states in that the former, that's U.S. citizen, is a special class of citizen created by Congress. That's U.S. versus Anthony. Okay? U.S. citizen equals Roman cult. And now another little diversion. Check out my other videos, Bankster Thieves 1, 2, and 3, Churchianity series, Bankrupt Corporate So-Called Governments, Bar Members 1, 2, and 3, Do-It-Yourself How Not to Volunteer for the Selective Service of the Draft, Martial Laws here, Do-It-Yourself No Income Tax, Do-It-Yourself Estoppel Certificates, Everything is an Illusion, Void Judgments, Do-It-Yourself Kangaroo Courts 1 through 9. Back to the topic at hand. This is Downs versus Bidwell. This is actually a pretty landmark case. 1900. U.S. Supreme Court. Upon the other hand, the 14th Amendment upon the subject of citizenship declares only that all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. Here there is a limitation to person born or naturalized in the United States, which is not extended to persons born in any place and subject to their jurisdiction. Okay, so again, they're differentiating here, and we're going to go into some of that a little bit more here too. Okay, so this is Downs versus Bidwell, and they're actually citing the first section in the 14th Amendment. Okay, so all persons is the operative word, born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction of the United States are citizens of the United States. So it's got to be both of those, okay, and subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. So if you happen to be in Texas or Arizona, then are you really, again, that's the question, isn't it? There is in our political system a government of each of the several states and a government of the United States. Each is distinguished from the other and has citizens of its own. Okay, that's U.S. versus Cruikshank. One may be a citizen of a state and yet not a citizen of the United States. Did you know that? Okay, so you don't have to be a U.S. citizen. Okay, you can be a state citizen without being a U.S. citizen. There is a clear distinction between national citizenship and state citizenship. That's Tashiro versus Jordan, U.S. Supreme Court again. Merely being native-born within the territorial boundaries of the United States of America does not make such an inhabitant a citizen of the United States subject to the jurisdiction of the 14th Amendment. Okay, so just because you're born here doesn't mean, like in Texas or Arizona or wherever, doesn't mean that you're a U.S. citizen. That's Elk versus Wilkins, 1884. Again, U.S. versus Cruikshank. There is in our political system a government of each of the several states and a government of the United States, and each is distinct from the other and has citizens of its own, okay? Did you give up your God-given rights for some satanic privileges? This is, again, Dred Scott versus, this is actually Mitchell versus Wells, but they're citing Dred Scott versus Sanford. Such construction ignores the rights of a state in virtue of its sovereignty to confer citizenship within its own limits, where the rights incident to such a status are not of the citizenship mentioned in the federal Constitution. It does not follow that because one has all the rights and privileges of citizens of a state, he must be a citizen of the United States. Such a distinction has long been recognized in this county. In other words, just because you're a state citizen doesn't mean you're a U.S. citizen. Instead, this provision protects only those rights peculiar to be a citizen of the federal government. It does not protect those rights which relate to state citizenship, and that's Jones versus Timmer to Shiro versus Jordan. Citizenship of the United States does not entitle citizens to privileges and immunities of citizens of the state, since privileges of one are not the same as the other. See, these judicial whores like to dance around that a lot. Taxpayers are not state citizens, okay? Remember, we went through that at the beginning, okay? It's all talking about U.S. citizens, okay? Well, here it's saying unequivocally that taxpayers are not state citizens. The state citizen is immune from any and all government attacks and procedure absent contract. Okay, that means knowing, willing, intentional contract. And that's not under the Law Merchant Uniform Commercial Code either, like these bail priests like to assault you with. Anyways, the state citizen is immune from any and all government attacks and procedure absent contract. Every man is independent of all laws except those prescribed by nature. He is not bound by any institutions formed by his fellow men without his consent. And that's Cruden versus Neal. State citizens are the only ones living under free government whose rights are incapable of impairment by legislation or judicial decision. And that's Supreme Court, U.S. Supreme Court, Twining versus New Jersey, whose rights are incapable of impairment by legislation or judicial decision. I don't care what these bail priests say. Favot versus Kingsbury. State citizenship is a vested substantial property right, and the state has no power to divest or impair these rights. The rights of the individuals are restricted only to the extent that they've been voluntarily surrendered by citizenship to the agencies of government. So, again, did you give up your God-given rights for some satanic privileges? City of Dallas versus Mitchell. So, what is the nature of the contract? And that's how they get you into it, okay? And again, it's all on presumption, okay? Because the first order of business in any of this stuff was to put the government into bankruptcy so they could seize it, okay? And so now it's not owned and operated by we the people anymore. It's owned and operated by the Roman cult. That's what happens, okay, when that kind of thing happens. Roman cult seizes it, and they're operating it now. And they're operating it for their profit, and they don't care. They're Satanists, okay? They want to cause as much misery as possible because they feed off of that stuff. They love that stuff. What is the nature of the contract? There is a distinction between a debt discharged and one paid. When discharged, the debt still exists, though divested of its character as a legal obligation to the operation of the discharge, right? So, again, when you use their private money system, Federal Reserve notes, you take advantage of the privilege of discharging your debts with limited liability. Why do you think that I put up at the very front that I prefer gold or silver coin, but as an extremely less desirable alternative, I can accept the IOUs, okay? That's because I don't want to be tied in with this so-called contract. And so I am making it known in no uncertain terms. Matter of fact, if you listen to some of my old videos, I tell them that they can put their privileges and benefits up their rectal orifice. And so that's why, okay, I am not going to be their slave. This is Gold Reserve Act of 1934, located at 48 Stat 337, Section 15. As used in this act, the term United States means the government of the United States. The term currency of the United States means currency, which is legal tender in the United States, which includes United States notes and Federal Reserve notes. And so right there it tells you that Federal Reserve notes are meant for internal use of the government only. When you go and use them, you're essentially saying that you're one of the slaves. And if you use them for any reason, you're volunteering in, okay? It's a contract. And that's why I never pay filing fees. Under no circumstances do I ever pay filing fees. And these bail priests, they try and assault you with their filing fees. And I'm right now, I'm in the battle with them assaulting me with their rules, okay? Because I don't have to follow their rules either. Dollar, the legal currency of the United States, the money unit of money consisting of 100 cents, the aggregate of specific coins which add up to $1. In the absence of qualifying words, it cannot mean promissory notes, bonds, or other evidences of debt. Okay? That's what a Federal Reserve note is. It's an IOU. Okay? And so, again, do you know who you are? Banknotes constituting a large and convenient part of the currency of our country, and by common consent, okay, when you use them, that's your consent. You've agreed to the contract. Serve to a great extent all of the purposes of coin. In themselves, they are not money, but they are not legal tender. Well, they've since passed an act that says that they're legal tender, right? And so they're the banksters and all their bankster organizations have to accept them now. But we, the people, still don't have to accept them, and we, the people, can. But still, we, the people, for we, the people, it's lawful money. That's why they have silver eagles out there. And anyways, and this thing goes on. It says, they subserve the purposes of money in the ordinary business of life, and by the mutual consent, express or implied, of the parties to a contract, and not by the binding force of any common usage, for the party to whom they may be tendered has an undoubted right to refuse accepting them as money. Nobody is forced to accept Federal Reserve notes. When I spend them, I always tell people, saying, all I got's these IOUs. Do you take IOUs? And a lot of times people, before they see them, they'll say, no, we don't take IOUs. And I'll say, well, here, this is an IOU. And they'll look at it, and then I'll tell them, well, it's commercial paper, right? And most people know that. And so then I said, well, all commercial paper falls into two categories. It's either a promissory note or an IOU. I don't care, stocks, bonds, whatever. And so they hear what I'm saying. And so then I say, and a promissory note has to have a promise to pay. And there's no promise to pay anything on those things. So then by definition, they're an IOU. And so, and then what I tell them is some guy promised to pay me, and when he pays me, I'll pay you. Anyways, so yeah, that's what I do. I try and educate people every time I spend those things. A banknote is a contract. A banknote resembles a common promissory note issued by a bank or corporation authorized to act as a bank. It is in fact a promissory note, but such notes are not for many purposes to be considered as mere securities for money, but are treated as money in the ordinary course and transactions of business by the general consent of mankind. Well, that was back when the banknotes actually said on they'll pay in gold or silver coin. They don't say that anymore. The silver certificates and the gold certificates are promissory notes because it says you can go and get the silver or the gold anytime you want. But these IOUs, these legal tender notes are forced loans. The Supreme Court has actually ruled that they're forced loans. I don't think I have that case in here. I should have, but I forgot. But they're a forced loan is what they are. They're an IOU. So, other references, I suggest you go and watch some other videos that'll give you some further enlightenment on this topic. See the do-it-yourself no income taxes video. See the do-it-yourself no property taxes video. See the do-it-yourself no sales taxes video. See the all state taxes are for U.S. citizens video. See the U.S. citizens are slaves video. So are you a taxpayer? Does it matter which state you are in? Absolutely no. Absolutely no. It doesn't matter. And we're going to go through that right now. The international law rule is adopted for areas under federal legislative jurisdiction, federalizes state civil law, including common law. The rule serves to federalize not only the statutory, but the common law of a state and federal venue discussed. The civil laws effective in an area of exclusive federal jurisdiction are federal law, notwithstanding their derivation from state laws, and a cause arising under such laws may be brought in or removed to a federal district court, and it tells you all about that, okay? Now, it says the civil laws in an area of exclusive federal jurisdiction are federal laws, okay? And so now I'm going to show you in a minute why, if you're a U.S. citizen, I don't care where you're at, you're in District of Columbia, okay? And this is actually taken from a book called Jurisdiction Over Federal Areas Within the States, a report of the Interdepartmental Committee for the Study of Jurisdiction Over Federal Areas Within the States, Part 2, a text of the Law of Legislative Jurisdiction submitted to the Attorney General and transmitted to the President, June 1957, and it's taken from pages 158 through 165. And it is exact text that's on there, except if you see where the dots are, then there's stuff missing, okay? And so, I had to scrunch it down. I mean, you're talking, about 7 pages, and so there's no way I could fit 7 pages in here, and a lot of it was, mumbo-jumbo. And so I just cut out a bunch of stuff and down to where it was what I wanted to say. Anyways, so go look it up. If you have any questions, just do a search for it on the internet. That's how I found it. So, therefore, this is National Mutual Insurance Company of the District of Columbia versus Tidewater Transfer Company, U.S. Supreme Court, 1948. We, therefore, decline to overrule the opinion of Chief Justice Marshall. We hold that the District of Columbia is not a state within Article 3 of the Constitution. In other words, cases between citizens of the district and those of the states were not included in the catalog of controversies over which the Congress could give jurisdiction to the federal courts by virtue of Article 3. In other words, Congress has exclusive legislative jurisdiction over citizens of Washington District of Columbia, and through their plenary power, that's military dictatorship, folks, nationally covers those citizens, even when in one of the several states, as though the district expands for the purpose of regulating its citizens wherever they go throughout the states of the Union. So, if you're a U.S. citizen, it doesn't matter where you're at. You're in the District of Columbia. Downs versus Bidwell. Did you give up your God-given rights for some satanic privileges? This is taken from the dissenting opinion of Justice Marshall Harlan. 2 national governments exist, one to be maintained under the Constitution with all its restrictions, the other to be maintained by Congress, outside and independently of that instrument. Why do you think that Nancy Pelosi, as Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives, says that they have to pass the Obamacare bill so they can find out what it says? It's because Obamacare only applies in D.C. and the territories. Matter of fact, 99% of what Congress does is for D.C. and the territories. Has nothing to do with Texas. But unless you're a U.S. citizen. Remember back to this last case we just talked about, National Mutual Insurance Company of District of Columbia versus Tidewater Transfer Company. It applies to U.S. citizens wherever they are. Otherwise, it only applies in D.C. and the territories. Are you a taxpayer? If you are a U.S. citizen, you're a slave. Okay, that's exactly what it is. You get to work for nothing. If you're a state citizen, you're the king. And there's nothing else. If you're a taxpayer, it's a contract. Okay, even if you're a U.S. citizen, it's still a contract. But because they have to get you into a contract, even if you're a U.S. citizen, it's always a contract. They have to have your consent. And a lot of times they just go ahead and forge your signature onto it, and we're going to show you that right now. Did you give up your God-given rights for some satanic privileges? That's what these Baal priests like doing, okay? These people are Satanists, okay? Remember, Congress for U.S. citizens, it's martial law, okay? There's no courts, okay? If you read that Downs versus Bidwell case, there are no courts in the District of Columbia or the territories, okay? There are no courts in those areas. They are Satanists. It's all administrative. It's a kangaroo court. It's prejudged from the beginning. They're just out salting people in a wholesale manner so they can get revenue. They don't care how they do it. It's the Roman cult. That's how they do business. Anyways, but individuals, when acting as representatives of a collective group, cannot be said to be exercising their personal rights and duties, nor be entitled to their purely personal privileges. Rather, they assume the rights, duties, and privileges of the artificial entity or of association over which they are agents or officers, and they are bound by its obligations. That's Bresswell versus United States, U.S. Supreme Court, quoting United States versus White, another U.S. Supreme Court, 1944. The point being is that that Satanist bail priest, when they haul you into traffic court, when they haul you into any court, and when you're dealing with the IRS, you're in court. Okay, any way you want to look at it, I don't care. When you're dealing with these bureaucrats, because there is no courts. In D.C., there are no courts. Okay, there are clerks. They're bought and paid for clerks, and it's all prejudged as a kangaroo court. Okay, it's a sham legal proceeding is what it is. And so look up the kangaroo court in a law dictionary. Anyways, so when that bail priest up there says, "Are you the name?" He knows you're not the name, okay? But when he says, "Are you the name?" and you say yes, well, they just got you into a contract right there. That's another contract, okay? There's more than one contract they like to get you into here, okay? They're not above forging your signature onto a contract, and we're going to go into that in a second. But this is, they get you into all these little contracts, okay? And what we need to do is we need to quit volunteering. That's what we need to do, is quit volunteering into these contracts. See, all these courts operate under the Uniform Commercial Code. That's why they're bail priests, okay? Because it's all come from the United Nations. Uniform Commercial Code is controlled and regulated by the Unidroit Statute. And the Unidroit Statute only has applicable to D.C. and the territories and U.S. citizens wherever they are. So U.S. citizens in Texas or U.S. citizens in Arizona, wherever, okay? All state statutes are actually federal. Remember, we read that international law rule. All state statutes are actually federal. Matter of fact, I got a YouTube video about that. Watch it. All statutes convert rights into privileges. That's what it is. All statutes convert rights into privileges. Anyways, whenever the Uniform Commercial Code creates a presumption with respect to a fact or provides that a fact is presumed, the trier of fact must find the existence of the fact unless and until evidence is introduced that supports a finding of its non-existence. And that's UCC 1-206. Now, so you have to understand everything's under martial law, okay? Under common law, you're presumed to be the king, okay? So you presume to have rights. I mean, it's completely different. Under martial law, you're presumed guilty until innocent, okay? Under common law, you're presumed innocent until guilty. Now, they go on past statutes that say that you're presumed innocent, but really you're presumed guilty until innocent under martial law, okay? I mean, what do you think is going on in those traffic courts and everything else? So anyways, and this is talking about that. So when you're presumed guilty until innocent, this is all just commerce, it's just business. And so the way you provide evidence is with an affidavit. And but anyway, so let's go on. This is UCC 3.308, proof of signatures and status as holder of due course. In an action with respect to an instrument, the authenticity of an authority to make each signature on the instrument are admitted, unless specifically denied in the pleadings. In other words, what they do is they forge your signature onto a contract, and then they collateralize it. I should say securitize it, not collateralize it. They securitize it and sell it on Wall Street. And so, and if you don't know that's what's going on, they sell you into slavery, and this is part of what that is all about right here. Okay, so they make a bunch of presumptions, and then they forge your signature onto a contract, and then this is 8.114. The following rules apply in an action on a certificated security against the issuer. Okay, that's a security certificate, right, sold on Wall Street. Unless specifically denied in the pleadings, each signature on a security certificate or in a necessary endorsement is admitted. If the effectiveness of a signature is put in issue, the burden of establishing effectiveness is on the party claiming under the signature, but the signature is presumed to be genuine and authorized. Okay, so they go ahead and forge your signature, then they securitize it, sell it on Wall Street. There's people that have found their criminal cases at Fidelity Investments. Okay, that's how these courts make millions of dollars. These courts are profit-making businesses, let me tell you. These are all bail priests. The court registry system. I've got videos about that, about the court registry system. They're all a bunch of bail priests. They're thieves. And they sell you into slavery. Okay, this is 1871 case. He, the prisoner, has, as a consequence of his crime, not only forfeited his liberty, but all his personal rights, except those which the law in its humanity affords him. He is, for the time being, a slave of the state. Okay, so Roman cult equals slavery. That's what they do. They enslave everybody. So not only all U.S. citizens are slaves by definition. They're forcing you to work for nothing. But now they put you in a cage. Okay, then they put you in a cage, and then they force you to work in there for nothing. Okay, but that's in slavery. Is what it is. It's exactly what it is. And under common law, see, that's why the first thing they have to do is orchestrate a bankruptcy, because they need to make that nasty little common law problem go away. And because at common law, they'd all be put to death for this. And at common law, we the people, if we're not taking care of business, then we're going to be held accountable. If a man be found stealing any of his brethren of the children of Israel, and maketh merchandise of him, or selleth him, then that thief shall die. Thou shalt put evil away from among you. Okay, we the people are supposed to be putting evil away from among us. And we are just absolutely clueless. Most of us aren't even Christians. I mean, we sit there and go to these churches and all this other stuff. Most of these churches are 501c3 tax exempt status. They're actually satanic organizations, okay, because they cannot speak the truth. Well, that's what Satanism is all about, is speaking half-truths and lies, okay? And so Trump is talking about eliminating that, but I don't know that he has. And the bottom line is, it's been in place. It was put in place by Johnson in the 60s. And so it's been there for so long. It's been in place for 60 years. And so they're trained, okay? All these churches are trained now. And so I don't know how much it's going to be effective. So the bottom line is we the people, we're going to be held accountable. Are you a taxpayer? A taxpayer is a slave, is a U.S. citizen. A U.S. citizen has no rights. If they can take a penny, they can take it all, okay? That's the truth. Okay, if they can take a penny, they can take it all. If you're a taxpayer, you are a slave. You are forced to work for nothing. Do you know who you are? So, this is actually something that I thought would be appropriate for in this position. And it says, end the New World Order with global non-compliance. That's what we have to do, is we have to quit participating. Okay, I've got a YouTube video. Everything's illusion. Quit participating. It's everything is an illusion. The matrix is real. Okay, everything is an illusion. Quit participating. Fight with your wallet to hurt them where it counts. This is the only voice they can hear, loud and clear. Do not borrow money from banks, and stop using credit cards. Use cash only. Stop giving them your money. Learn to barter for goods. Try not to use their money. Shop local owned stores. Keep your money circulating in your own hometown. Absolutely. These are great ideas. Avoid large corporate stores such as Walmart, Costco, any other Chinese import store. What is the cost of low prices from China? Inflation, pay now or pay later. It's up to you. Grow as much food at home as you can. Window gardens, patio gardens, or one outside. Do what you can. Buy used items instead of new. Start a business producing real physical goods and sell locally. Recycle old items. Avoid fast food stores. Get everyone you know involved, especially those in your own neighborhood. Share your garden. Get to know your neighbors. That's the only way we're going to be able to defeat these Satanists. In addition to that, open bank accounts without social security numbers. See the do-it-yourself open a bank account with no social security number video. Put everyone who may have anything to do with you into estoppel. See the do-it-yourself estoppel certificates video. Anyways, that's the end of it. Are you a taxpayer? If you are, you're a slave. And that's really all there is to it. You get to work for nothing. And it may only be, for 6 months out of the year or 3 months out of the year, but you still get to work for nothing. If you're a taxpayer, you get to work for nothing. And so I hope you get something out of it. Spread the word. We need to put a stop to this tyranny. And have a great day.